disk floating through space with a tiny sun.
Hey, I'm FTFE. Welcome back to the channel that attaches jumper cables to the nipples of stupidity. If you were just watching me on Creaky's channel, and welcome to this channel. Thank you very much to the Creaky Blinder for having me on for an episode of Creaky Cast. That was awesome. Creaky Blinder is one of my favorite content creators on YouTube. So if you guys are not subscribed to the Creaky Blinder, I fully suggest you go and do that right now. But thank you for joining me for another debate about the shape of the Earth. This is my 125th debate about this subject. I'm having a lot of fun doing them, and I'm not going to stop. With me tonight, I have IgotQuestions, who I've been talking to for a while. We've been going back and forth trying to arrange a time for us to have a debate, and we've finally managed to sort it out. So thank you very much for joining me. What do you want me to call you, first off?
Hi, Greg. Hi, guys. Thank you for the space. Thank you for inviting me.
No worries.
So my name is Ruben Lionel, and my channel is called IgotQuestions. So yeah. I'm the one who's got questions.
Awesome. So I call you Ruben, yes?
Right, whatever.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining me, Ruben. I do appreciate it. Why don't you just take a few minutes, tell people about your channel, what you do on your channel, and what your position on the shape of the Earth is.
Right. So I started about 4 years ago. Well, first of all, apologize for my low level of English. So I do what I can. It's not my first language.
You're probably as good as
me. And yeah. And well, after I really discovered the sign NASA are lying to us, so I believe that first that the Earth is flat. So then I become to give chances to the concave Earth. So right now I'm kind between of the two models, and I just post videos on my about the concave Earth model, how does it work, experiment, and that's it.
Okay.
Whatever you want to ask me.
Right. So I suppose the best question to start with is, why don't you think the Earth is as we're told? What are your issues with the heliocentric model?
Okay, so there are many issues because the heliocentric model, the official model, it's working, but only if you watch it, only if you get into it on a surface level. But if you go deep on details, you can realize, me for example, you can realize that those details doesn't work. So basically it's about physics. So they say we are on top of a like kind of liquid ball with just a 0.3% of diameter, with a hard surface which we are standing on it, the water also, but all inside the Earth it's kind of fluid, on constant movement. So if you got a gyroscope,
cut out for a second there. You there?
Very stable axis, right?
Yeah.
So instead the Earth, it's pointing a star at 438 light years, which is Polaris, every hour, pointing the same place on the sky. So to me, that's the anti-physics. I don't know.
Well, the thing about Polaris is that it's relatively close to us. If we look at the galaxy that we're in, the stars that you can see in the night sky with your naked eye are a very small portion of our galaxy, and that portion of stars that we see is moving around the center of the galaxy with us, right? So Polaris is just in a position where it is in alignment with our axial tilt, right? But not exactly, because even throughout the year, you could trace a circle of Polaris. It wobbles, and if you go back into almanacs of like ancient sailors and stuff, you can actually see that the position of Polaris has changed throughout the years. 3,000 years ago, it was a star called Thurbon or Alpha Draconis, and if based on the axial precession, in about 13,000 years, it's going to be Vega, which is another extremely bright star in the sky. So the precession of the axis, it matches with what we say about the heliocentric model. The reason we see Polaris as the North Star all the time at the moment is because it is relatively in alignment with our axial tilt, and it is part of the cluster of stars that is moving around the center of the galaxy with us.
Well, that precession, it's a very low one, you know, in fulfill a cycle in 26,000 years. So that's not what I mean. I mean day by day. So if the official version of that tiny precession only could be possible, in my opinion, if the Earth will be a hard stone. But if you got an inside which is in continual movement, and the lava goes up at a different densities, because they say the iron on the mountains comes from the deep of the earth, right? So you don't have a same density lava. You got a different density lava which coming up, going down. So that will make a humble on the earth day by day. I'm not meaning the 26 year precession, but what I'm meaning it's a like wobbling, but on a short time, day by day. You know,
So,
like a tire. If a tire, it's not good. I don't know how to say it. Well, if you don't put plums on the tire, you will have vibrations, right? So
yeah.
so what happened with the earth? So who's equilibrate the earth? Who's putting those masses, those plums to the earth to get so stable axis?
Well,
I mean,
there's no one calibrating it. It's all to do with the conservation of momentum and the way that our planet was formed. So the heliocentric model says that our planet was formed because mass from an exploding star started clumping together due to gravity and spinning. And because as it formed, all those parts were spinning, it maintains that velocity, that angular velocity, it maintains that, revolution because of, the natural laws of conservation of momentum. So that spinning has always been there. And over millions and billions of years, it's become this stable thing that we know. And it actually will matches perfectly with the heliocentric model. There's nothing that would change the fact that it is rotating at 15 degrees per hour or one rotation a day, because in space there is no friction. There's nothing for that to go against. There's nothing to cause vibrations in the earth. And the fact that it's been spinning for billions of years has caused things like the bulge around the equator that is the equatorial diameter is 46 miles more than the polar diameters. And that matches with what you would expect with a rotating body over billions and billions of years.
Yeah, but the axis of the Earth is 13,000 kilometers. I mean the diameter of the Earth. So
yeah,
that imaginary axis is pointing at 438 light years. So with
what do you,
small...
what do you mean the axis is pointing at 400? You mean that it's pointing at Polaris, and that's how far away Polaris is?
It's not exactly Polaris, but
roughly,
it's pointing
yeah.
at the... Right. So I mean that if the Earth is has an inside in continuous movement, that perfect pointing to the same spot at the sky will not be possible. You will have a wobbling
but
maybe
it does wobble even throughout the year. You can trace a wobble of
no, but I'm not meaning that low precession at 26,000 years.
Yeah,
I mean a day by day.
There's no reason it should change day by day. If, as I said, Polaris is part of the cluster of stars that are moving throughout the galaxy with us, 400 odd light years is peanuts to the galaxy, which at last estimates, I think they said, is about 300,000 light years in diameter, depending on what point you say the galaxy ends. But the stars that you see at night are all moving throughout the galaxy with us, and the fact that the Earth has an axis that points at a particular star is just a coincidence of how it is. Now, imagine this, okay? Imagine you put a dot on your ceiling, right? And you were on a something that was, a merry-go-round in your front room. No matter where you were on that merry-go-round as it spins, if you look up, you would still see that dot on the ceiling in the same place. Even if that merry-go-round started, as well as spinning, moving in random directions around your room, you would still look up and see the dot on the ceiling in relatively the same position, because relatively it's quite close to you. And it's the same as Polaris and most of the other stars we see at night. They're all relatively close to us and moving throughout the galaxy with us. And there's no reason why the Earth should just wobble randomly, because there's nothing to cause that.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. In my opinion, there is reason to cause that this calibration of the Earth, and it is moving the movement, the inside movement of the lava, continuously coming up and going down on a different densities. So that's like a tire which has lost the plumb.
Yeah, but all those movements are the reasons for things like plate tectonics, and there's no reason why those movements would counteract the fact that the entire Earth is rotating the way it does. Even though there is individual movements and eddy currents and stuff of magma underneath us, the entire Earth, including those movements and eddy currents, are also rotating. It's the same as if you look at a storm, right? Within that storm, there's wind going north, east, southwest, whatever, okay? But that entire storm system is rotating with the Earth. So everything is rotating with the Earth, because it all has that conservation of angular momentum.
Yeah, but that's not the point. So, I mean, if you just imagine you put a big mass on equator, immediately that will cause a vibration, because if to don't have any vibrations, the gyroscope or the spinning mass, whatever, it has to be perfectly calibrated.
But
So
there is vibrations, and we can measure these with like seismometers and stuff. You know, we can tell when there's an earthquake pretty much anywhere on the planet because of the compression waves that it sends through the internal structure of the planet. You know, P&S waves and stuff, right? So we know what's happening below us. There's no reason it would just be randomly vibrating and altering the fact that the entire Earth, including all those eddy currents and everything, is also maintaining that angular momentum. It's not going to adjust it. But what we do see with gyroscopes is a precession that can't be explained if the Earth is flat and motionless. I mean, forget about the fact that it's flat or concave at the moment, but we can detect the fact that the Earth is moving quite easily.
how?
Any gyroscope that is sufficiently lubricated will show that. Every single interferometric fiber optic gyroscope on the Earth will register it. And interestingly, the interferometric fiber optic gyroscopes, they don't just register that rotation in 15 degrees, you know, around its own axis. They also register the movement around the sun, so about 1 degree a day, right? So we can measure these things with things that have a, you know, extreme accuracy, and that tells us that we're moving. And then when you have things like a pendulum that is set up correctly, you can even calculate your latitude on the planet based on the drift that you get.
No, I couldn't, because my pendulums were
So I looked at your pendulums, and the main issue is you don't have a high enough amplitude there. The distance between the pivot point and where the pendulum is swinging isn't far enough away. I also didn't think that the connection that you had looked completely stable, and that would induce precession around it. Okay, but there is very good examples of where it's done correctly. Right now, if we look at this guy who is called the gentleman physicist, who went to a local high-rise building that he has, right, with summit that's really far away, and in that local high-rise building, in the flats, he set up an extremely long pendulum. Okay, and he let the pendulum swing for as long as it could. I think it went for about 47 minutes, and just with the drift that was calculated from that. So, you know, first off, it's not going to be, you know, magnetized or anything, because it's like a plastic fishing wire with a lump of cement. And he let it go for a certain amount, and using some basic maths, based on the drift that he got, he was actually able to calculate what his latitude was, and it worked out. And that's unexplainable. Yes, you have some videos of pendulums in your front room, but it's just hanging off of the ceiling. It's really not a you know, a big enough thing for you to measure what you're trying to do. The amplitude of the swing is going to not be conducive to actually measuring what you want. And the fact that you got different precessions at different times shows that there's, you know, no accuracy really to what you did. The reason why this one worked is because it was such a long piece of string, and they just, you know, they made sure that it was a symmetrical, you know, hanging apparatus that they had it on, and they let it go. And as this video shows, they were able to calculate their latitude on Earth within an error of 1.4 degrees, which is pretty damn good when you look at what they're doing. And this isn't the only example of this happening. There's many examples of pendulums showing this drift. Yes, I know that you have done some and it didn't get the same result, but I honestly didn't think that the place that you decided to do it in was sufficient for what you were looking to get.
Yeah, you could have right, but I'm gonna repeat the pendulum experiment. I also bought a gyroscope.
I'm trying to do one myself as well. I'm trying to get access to a local block of flats here, but I thought it was the council that owned them, but it isn't. I'm trying to do one myself to try and replicate this as well. If you are going to redo it, I would suggest that you try and find somewhere where you can get a much longer pendulum. You really need some that is, quite big to be able to get the effect that you need. And I do appreciate the fact that you've attempted to do the experiments. I just don't think that the controls that you put in place whilst doing it and the methodology was appropriate for actually trying to get what you need.
Yeah, anyway, I'm going to repeat it myself on a higher distance.
Yeah, that would be, I'd like to see that. And I do appreciate that actually there's people like you that do intend to do experiments like this to try and recreate. But it doesn't change the fact that we can get these kind of measurements. So why would you be able to calculate your latitude based purely on the drift? How is that possible if the Earth isn't moving?
Well, I don't really think that this experiment that this guy was detecting the rotation. I don't know.
What was it?
I don't know
then?
if. Well, I don't know if those piece of metals were magnetic or he was faking whatever. Well, I don't know. I want to repeat it because there is no other experiment like this, and the museums they show you a motorized pendulum. They say it's an experiment, but it isn't, because if you have a engine, a magnetic engine which moves the cable, this is not an experiment. So
yeah, I mean, most of them, the magnetics is to keep it going. But yes,
yeah, but
that there is, unless you were involved in building that, I suppose you're not going to know specifically what forces are involved. So trying to recreate it yourself is a very good idea. But again, the point stands that he was able to calculate his latitude based purely on the drift that he got. And what the effect that you have, the reason it's doing this is because of the Coriolis force, right? So as the pendulum swings forward and backwards, it changes the angular velocity position on Earth that it has. So it's going from one point of angular velocity to a point where the angular velocity is less or higher. And doing this, going backwards and forwards, is what induces that drift. And that's why if you were at the poles, you wouldn't detect the drift. But if you're at the exactly at the equator doing this, you would get exactly 15 degrees drift. And that is the effect that we expect to see on the Earth. But there's not just that evidence that the Earth is rotating. There's other things that we should expect to see, like the Igot effect. So if the Earth is rotating, as we say it is, then that means it's going to have a centrifugal acceleration, right?
Right.
We at the equator, we can calculate that centrifugal acceleration of about 0.3% of the gravitational acceleration. Now, a good way to test that if the Earth is rotating or not is to try and add to or take away from that centrifugal acceleration. So if you are traveling from east to west, you're going to take away from that centrifugal acceleration. And if you're traveling west,
you mean north south?
No.
Not east.
No, it's going to north and south wouldn't affect the Igot effect. That comes into account when you're going east and west, because as the Earth is rotating from west to east, right? That means that it's got a centrifugal acceleration going that way, outwards from the globe. So if you travel from west to east as well, that means that you're going to add to the centrifugal acceleration that's there, which will take away from the gravitational acceleration. If you travel from west to east, then you're going to reduce the centrifugal acceleration, which will add to the gravitational acceleration. So it will literally, you will weigh more or less if you're going west to east or east to west, right? And Wolfie 6020 did an experiment to show this by getting on a plane. Before he got on the plane, he would measure a 500-gram test weight. And then whilst on the plane traveling east to west and on the plane traveling east to west, he measured the average weight of that weight whilst he was on the plane. And it showed that when you travel with when you add to the centrifugal acceleration of the Earth, the things actually weighed less. And when you took away from the centrifugal acceleration of the Earth, the things weighed more, which is only explainable if you're on a rotating body.
Yeah, but that experiment is not accurate. You know why? Because you don't actually know if the plane is going down or is going up. So
Well,
if it's going a little up, you will weigh more, and if it's going a little down, you will weigh less.
Right, let me get I've actually got it programmed here. So
many flat earthers also.
Yeah, I probably got the pronunciation wrong, Pinky. Igot, I struggle to pronounce that. So what he did was he got this 500-gram test weight, and you know when the plane's rising and when you're at cruising altitude and whatever, okay? But that's why he took an average of what he had, and he recorded it throughout the whole flights whilst traveling west to east and east to west. And the result was that you got the results that were expected. You had a perceived increase or a perceived decrease to the gravitational acceleration, which is only explainable by the fact that we're on a rotating body and you're adding to or taking away from that. There is no other explanation for why you would get those variations in the weight.
Who was doing this experiment? Wolfie?
Wolfie 6020, yeah.
Oh, all right.
But it's not the first time that this has been done. He was verifying results done by Lord Igot back in the 1700s. They did tests on ships traveling east to west and west to east in the Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean, the Mediterranean Ocean. And their results were always the same. When you were traveling with the rotation of the Earth and adding to that centrifugal acceleration, you had a reduction in weight. And when doing the opposite, you had an increase in weight.
Okay. But what about gyroscopes? Can detect gyroscopes the rotation of the Earth?
Absolutely. Wolfie 6020 has got a gyroscope that does that, an actual physical gyroscope. The issue with a lot of gyroscopes is that they have to contend with friction, okay? And the forces that cause that drift are so minimal that if there is friction, then it's not going to register that drift as it should, which is why you need to make sure that they're lubed up correctly. And Wolfie 6020, he's got videos doing that as well. But when you're talking about gyroscopes, the best thing to do is go with an optical gyroscope. And we all know what happened with an optical gyroscope, don't we?
Is when we turned on that gyroscope, we found that we were picking up a drift, a 15-degree-per-hour drift.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, so this guy is a flat earther?
Yeah, that's Bob Nadell.
All right. So don't you have, all universities, has nobody done this experiment before? So it has to be a flat earther who's done
well, yeah, universities aren't really interested in testing to see if the Earth rotates. The fact is that every single modern aircraft in the world has 3 of these fiber optic gyroscopes on the plane. One for yaw, one for pitch, and one for roll. Okay, and as soon as they're turned on, the second that they are turned on, they instantly start detecting a 15-degree-per-hour drift in 3 axes. Right, so it's not just a drift on a 2D plane. It's a drift in 3 axes, which you would only expect if you were on a rotating ball or a sphere.
Okay, but there is no Gilbert who done this experiment before Bob Knodel, and nobody else after Bob. The only one.
Well, these gyroscopes are pretty expensive. Like Bob had to spend $20,000 on that one, and apparently they've just spent $40,000 on a new one. You know.
Sorry, I researched that, and this is a lie. So
Well,
Bob Noddle doesn't spend 20,000. So he's got a different device, which is not a ring laser gyroscope, which is a interferometer, which is in a case, but it's not a ring laser.
no,
So
he
it's
actually had
more-
he actually had a fiber optic gyroscope, not a ring laser gyroscope, but they both work on the same principle of interferometric.
No, the other one, it's $500. It's not 20,000.
Wait. Well, whether he lied or not about the cost of it is irrelevant. The point is that when they turned on that gyroscope, they registered a 15 degree per hour drift.
But how can we trust in a flat earther? So I mean, Bob Noddle it's obvious that he's a global infiltrated in a flat earth movement.
He would deny that because he's currently trying to sue me. So and actually
He's trying to sue.
Yeah, the FE Corps are trying to sue me. It's quite funny. They don't like that I call them out on their lies. So here's the thing, though. It's not just Bob's gyroscope that detects this, right? It's all of them. Every single interferometric gyroscope on the planet detects this drift in 15 degrees. And you know, whether or not Bob was truthful about what he said, it's irrelevant because his gyroscope did detect that. And there's a video of him, I thought I had it programmed in, with Nathan Thompson, right? And they're sitting in Bob's front room and they plug in the gyroscope and turn it on. And as soon as it's turned on, it's just there sitting on his desk. But as soon as they turn it on, it instantly starts detecting that 15 degree per hour drift. So the question is, why is it detecting that?
No, I don't trust in Nathan Thompson either.
I wouldn't trust
So-
Nathan Thompson. He's a child predator. But I mean, again, the people in this point are irrelevant. Okay, the point is that he did a live stream showing him plugging in that interferometric gyroscope and showing that it detects that drift, and it does because all of them do. So whether or not you trust those people, the question remains: why do interferometric gyroscopes pick up a 15 degree per hour drift?
Well, I don't believe that gyroscope pick up any drift. I don't believe it.
But they
So
do.
You said
it's literally a fact of their function.
You said Wolfie has a gyroscope experiment. Can you show it? Because I'm a follower of Wolfie, and I didn't see any gyroscope experiment detecting the Earth rotation. He's got a lot of artificial horizontal videos, but not any. I haven't seen any.
I'd have to
rotation.
look and find that for you specifically. But there is a a good video that Wolfie did, kind of showing what the gyroscopes pick up.
I mean the mechanical gyroscope.
Yeah, but again, the mechanical gyroscopes are very difficult to deal with because they have friction, which is why we look at things like interferometric fiber optic gyroscopes. I'd honestly have to
friction on the gimbals.
Sorry?
They got frictions on the gimbals.
Yeah, well, any moving piece will have friction, right? Anything that moves and is connected to something else will have friction, and that is a force that the drift has to work against.
Yeah, but anyway, if the like, let's say Wolfie is a commercial pilot, right? So he's flying on aeroplanes, modern aeroplanes that got IRS to free gyroscopes, and they say the modern aeroplanes got free ring laser gyroscopes. So I haven't seen any video of Wolfie or somebody else pilot just recording those gyroscopes while he's waiting on the on an airport, waiting for the takeoff.
Okay, but why would Wolfie have to comply to your specific things that I don't understand?
Because that's a simple experiment, just showing a ring laser gyroscope detecting the spinning of the Earth. So there is.
Right. Okay, so maybe
Because
you could
you said-
maybe you could ask Wolfie to do that. But again, he's done a lot of experiments that can show that there's rotation. Maybe he hasn't done the specific one that you want. All right, but let me bring your attention to a guy called Scott McPeak Gaming. I hit Sleeping Warrior with this, and his only response was he's only got 78 subscribers. So he built a mechanical gyro compass. Okay. Yeah, the gyro compass, right? And he built a mechanical one and set it all up. And this mechanical gyro compass was able to find true north the way it should. That's not the right video. I went to the wrong one there. Gyro compass, that's the one I want.
Yeah, but the gyro compass is not a gyroscope.
It works on the same principles, right? So he uses the gyroscopic motion, and it uses the rotation of the Earth to detect what it's detecting. Okay, so
yeah,
we can use a gyro compass to show that if there is Earth's rotation, and I would like you to address the reason why, with a homemade gyro compass. Here we go. There's the right video. He was able to detect the rotation of the Earth. Here. Let me mute that. So yeah, this is a homemade gyro compass. All mechanical parts, nothing computer programmed, and he was able to use it to detect the rotation of the Earth. How do you explain the fact that you can use these devices?
No, I can explain it because I don't understand how the gyro compass work.
Right. So
I know how a gyroscope works, which is maintain stable on space, rigidity on space, but I don't know how the gyro compass works.
A gyro compass is a type of non-magnetic compass which is based on a fast spinning disk and the rotation of the Earth to find a geographical direction automatically. So it uses the gyroscopic function, a fast spinning disk, to orientate itself. So it's maintained by a continuously driven gyro compass whose axis is parallel to the Earth's axis of rotation. So it works along the same principles of, a gyroscope.
But do you, Greg, do you understand perfectly how the gyro compass works?
Yeah, because it aligned based on the fact that it is a large spinning disk, and the fact that the Earth is the Earth is rotating, the forces will automatically align it to give you a true north.
And how long does it take? How long does it take to detect the north, the geographical north?
In this one, I think he had it running for several hours. At some point, sped up to 50 times 50. But he kind of explains. Right, let me play a bit of the video to explain it. Give me one sec.
Coming toward you.
Right.
Next, above it. A little bit closer on the boat. All right, so now I want to talk a bit about the theory of the gyro compass. The gyro compass uses the phenomenon of precession, so it's important to make sure you're completely comfortable with precession. So let's start there. Precession refers to a change in an object's spin axis, and a common source of change in precession, change in spin axis, is a torque, an external torque. So if we imagine that we have an object that's spinning about a particular axis, and we apply a torque. So here, imagining a torque that tries to turn the top going away and the bottom coming toward you, that will cause the axis around which the object is spinning to turn, to precess, in the way indicated in red here. The axis will tilt to the left. This might be a little bit surprising because naively you might expect the axis to simply tilt away from you at the top, because that's the direction in which the torque is applied, but that's not what happens. Another example, a more common example, is a spinning top. So imagine we have a top and it's spinning clockwise from above. If we look at the forces on this top, there is its weight, which we can think of as being applied at the center of mass, and the point of contact. The weight pulls down, the contact pushes up, but they don't go through the same point if the top is leaning over, as it is in this diagram. As a result, there's a torque trying to tilt the top further over, and if the top wasn't spinning, it would simply fall over to the right due to this torque. But because the top is spinning, what we observe is that the axis changes, it precesses, and the top here will then move toward you, as things are shown in this diagram. Now, that then results in the visible wobble of the top, because when the axis tilts toward you, the torque caused by the imbalance in weight shifts its location. So the direction in which the axis precesses changes as the top moves around in its wobble, and thus goes around in a circle. So let's zoom in and try to understand why this happens. So here we're looking at a close-up of the top, and we're looking at the downhill side of it. So it's tilted toward you, and it's still spinning clockwise. If we focus on just this one point, what are the forces acting there? Well, it has a certain weight, and it's also being supported by the structure around it, but the support is less than the weight. That's why, again, if the top were not spinning, it would fall toward you. There's a net force in the down direction on that point. But the top is spinning. So that point is moving to the left with a certain velocity. And like all objects that have a velocity, when you apply a force, their velocity changes. It doesn't instantly start moving in the direction in which the force is applied. So the new velocity of that point as a result of the downward force is down and to the left. But if that point travels down and to the left, then that means that the spin is now tilted over to the left of the entire top. The axis, similarly, is tilted to the left relative to the old spin axis, and that's what we call precession. Again, since the direction in which the top is leaning.
So yeah, so that's the principle upon which it works. It's the torque created by the fact that it's on something that is spinning and it has its own axis of rotation. It's all about a net sum of forces that, in the case of a gyro compass, allows it to find what true north is.
Okay, so I got a question.
Yeah.
The gyro's compass is working on exact equator?
It would work anywhere.
But
it
on
would
the
allow,
equator,
it allow you to it will allow you to find what true north is. I mean,
yeah, but on the equator, there is no torque.
Why not? The poles is when you wouldn't get a precession.
On the equator, the pendulum doesn't turn.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry.
Yeah,
you're right. You're right. My bad. Sorry. At the poles, a pendulum, you get 15 degrees. At the equator, you get you don't get any, because the Coriolis is very different at that point. Yes.
Right. So anyway, the gyro compasses on the boat, you know, the
Yeah.
high quality ones, I think they are working on the equator also. So that must be something that we're missing on the gyro compasses function. How did they work?
No, there's nothing missing. Based on the fact that it's spinning, allows it to calculate what that torque is and where the torque will lead the precession. Honestly, don't know the specifics about how it would work as you cross the equator. I'd have to look into the maths of that. But it's a result of the net sum of forces. So
Yeah, the gyro compasses are working with the Earth rotation, right?
Yeah.
Right. So let's say you are in the equator and your gyro compass is pointing west. So you have to wait at least 6 hours to pointing north, because in 6 hours you got a turn of 90 degrees. So the gyro compasses, I don't think they last 6 hours to pointing north. In about,
they have a continual rotating disc in that's the point of them. I'm pretty sure it would work. I'm pretty sure a gyro compass would work a lot better at the equator than it would at the poles. I'm honestly going to have to do the math on it. But the point is, it's an effect that is because of rotation. It's a torque that's applied due to that rotation. I wish I'm going to go through this video and put points in at Sir, because he does explain a lot of, maybe it's here, one sec.
This is pointed west. So what has to happen here? Well, this whole apparatus is firmly attached to the Earth. The Earth is rotating about north. So over time, the orientation of this apparatus must change. The west side has to go up, the east side has to go down. The top has to go to the right, to the east, and the bottom has to go to the west. So if the orientation of the flywheel is changing over time, that must be due to a force. There's a force on the top element of the flywheel that's pointed east, and that is what would cause, if it didn't change its orientation, to tilt over. That is, if the spin axis continued to point west, then the flywheel would simply tilt over toward the east in order to keep track of the Earth. So there must be a force on the top element of the flywheel pointing east. But the top element of the flywheel is moving north because it's spinning. So even though there's an eastward force, it can't respond to that immediately and start instantly moving east. Instead, it continues to move north with an eastward deflection. But if the top of the flywheel is now traveling northeast, the spin axis must be deflecting toward the north.
Right. So yeah, I think that kind of answers what you were asking. But no, I'm MC2 kind of point as well. I'm pretty sure that it would work a lot better at the equator and would barely work at the poles. I can give you the link to that video and you can go over everything that he's saying. But it's another evidence that there is a rotational force, that there is a result of the rotation of the Earth that gives us something, right? And all these things match up with what we say is the rotation of the Earth, because all the forces balance out. And it goes back to a simple case of
a 15-degree-per-hour drift.
Cheers, Bob. So I need to know, if you say the Earth is not moving, why is it so easy to measure and detect the movement of the Earth?
Well, it's not easy to miss because I don't believe those, let's call it clues. I don't believe it because the gyro compass, until I don't understand perfectly how does it works, so I would not take it as a proof.
So because you don't understand it, you wouldn't take it as a proof.
No, because if the gyroscope of the gyro compass axis is pointing to the west and you are in the equator, it lasts at least 6 hours.
Why would it last at least 6 hours? I don't know where you're getting that from.
Because if the gyro compass used the rotation, the torque of the rotation of the Earth, right? So if it's pointing west, from west to the north, there is 90 degrees. So the Earth must do 90 degrees of turn in order to turn the gyroscope axis to the north.
No, because the alignment of the gyro compass is perpendicular to the rotation axis of the Earth, and that's why you get the deflection.
Yeah, it's perpendicular when it's already aligned, but if you just turn it on, the gyro compass will just stay. He doesn't know where the north is. So
no, but it finds it, and over time the forces will make it align to what true north is because of the rotation of the Earth. It would happen. It would take more and more time for it to happen the closer to the poles you got. I'm pretty sure that as you got near the poles, the gyro compass would become practically useless.
No, I think it's opposite. It's if you are near to the poles, doesn't work.
No, not with a gyro compass, because it is using its own axis in relation to its own axis of rotation in relation to the axis of rotation of the Earth. The further away from the poles you got, the less deflection you would get because the lack of opposing forces. As you got closer to the equator, there would be more of an opposing force, meaning you would get more of a precession.
Okay, but anyway, I repeat, I don't understand completely how does it work.
How about you're saying you're going to do some experiments? So how about one of the experiments you do is to try and maybe build your own gyro compass so that you can understand the function of it better, because it's an excellent demonstration that the Earth rotates, explained perfectly by the forces that we have.
Right. So in order to build myself a gyro compass, first of all, I have to understand how does it work. So I don't by now.
Okay, but I'm sure you can research it, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't understand, it's probably best that we move on to something else. Like, why does an interferometric gyroscope pick up that 15 degrees? What is the, why is
I don't believe it pick it up,
but it does. I mean, every single one in the world picks it up. Give me one.
You will show me now again the Bob Knodel video, right?
I'll show you a different one that I covered before. Just give me 1 sec to get it.
Different one, but same ficor.
Yeah.
Which suits you. So
mean,
you don't have any.
It doesn't matter. The thing is, he is the only person that wanted to do this, right? He's the only person that thought that he could disprove the rotation of the Earth with it. So he's the one that put up these videos that are good for us to use.
Greg, you don't have any global mate which has done that interferometer experiment?
No, no one's spent a bunch of money on buying one.
But it's $500. It's not $25.
Yeah. Okay. You find someone that's willing to just chuck $500 away. Oh crap!
Well, Wolfie is millionaire.
No, Wolfie's not a millionaire.
Yeah, it is.
No, Wolfie's not a millionaire. You know who is a millionaire apparently is Flat Earth Millionaire. Why doesn't he do it if he's got all this money?
Yeah, exactly. This one can do it. They raised the award to 200,000.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, here's a question about that. Right. 200,000 is the cost that Blue Origins are asking to go on their trip to space that they're doing this year for civilians. Right. So if he's got $200,000 to throw away on a a challenge that anyone could win, why doesn't he instead spend that $200,000 on booking himself a flight to space that is available this year?
No, because to me personally, the flight to space, it doesn't mean anything, because on the concave Earth you will see the same ball Earth, convex ball Earth, but it's not. You just see it. It's just an illusion because of the bending light.
Yeah, we know how light works though. So let me just play this a sec. It's showing movement.
Now, what everybody is most interested in is they're saying, well, you know, that 15-degree-per-hour rotation is picking up the roll. But the interesting thing about what's going on here is you have movement on both on all the roll, pitch, and yaw axes, and it's essentially doing this.
Bob is on your house's floor, which means it will register.
You have the very
right. Here we go. Here's him talking about this.
What's called.
And Bob is right. They do use them on planes for the artificial horizon because they are extremely accurate, like really, really accurate. Come on, get on with it.
And down here you have the very, very fine roll, pitch, and yaw. And you can see they're all moving, right? It's just sitting here, but they're all moving.
Yep, they're. Yep. So that's the point. It's just, you know, he's showing it there live. He's got it plugged in. You know, and it's showing that just as it's sitting there, it's moving.
Greg, hold on. Don't you realize that Bob Knodel is lying on this video?
Have you got any evidence of that?
Yeah, because he doesn't show the screen. You're not able to see the screen.
The screen's right in front of you.
Yeah, but you're not able to see what it's on.
You can see it quite clearly on the actual thing. And it's not the first time he's shown it as well. This is just a live stream that Nathan Thompson decided to do.
No, you just have to believe what he says, but you're not able to see the screen, exactly the numbers.
You can see that it starts moving as he turns it on, which is the important part.
No, the important part is to detect exact 15 degrees per hour, not to see that moving.
But that's the thing. Whether or not you believe Bob says that what Bob says is true or not isn't the point. It's that every single interferometric fiber optic gyroscope and ring laser gyroscope on the planet picks up that 15-degree drift. Every single time a pilot turns them on when they're getting their plane ready, they instantly pick up that 15-degree drift in three axes.
What if on every flight, every pilot picks that drift on? Why it's so difficult to Wolfie or some other pilot just to make a footage of the IRS with the 3 gyroscopes detecting the drift?
I don't know. Just be. That's not really an argument. Saying I haven't seen the footage, therefore it's not real, isn't the point. Maybe he will make one doing that. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen lots of videos of like pilots starting up the plane, but just saying why isn't that there isn't an evidence against what we're showing you. The fact is they do pick them up, whether you believe it or not. They do pick up a 15-degree per hour drift, every single one of them. Critical Think says footage exists on his channel. Critical Link, I'm going to moderate you. Could you please post a link to that? If you guys haven't subscribed to Critical Think, then you should do that. He was on one of my very early videos we did about Flat Earth, Aussie Jesus. But apparently there is footage of that exists. So, you know.
Critical Think is the upside down guy?
Yeah, the guy on the fake Australia.
Okay.
So there is footage of that. I'm hopefully I'm going to get that for you. But working on the assumption right now that there is footage of that and that fiber optic gyros do pick up that 15 degree per hour drift. What is the explanation?
Now, the explanation might be unaccepted, but I don't believe it. So you say, no, even if you believe it or not, that's a fact. So it's a fact for you, but it's not a fact for me.
I mean, it's a fact of their very function. That's the thing. I'm just, critical
I don't
that doesn't work.
Bob Knodel. I don't trust that guy, that English guy you just showed with the pendulum on the building.
Critical, that link isn't working. Can you try again? So you don't trust people, therefore the Earth isn't a globe that's moving. Not really a great argument.
Yeah, I trust people, but I don't trust this one. So Bob Knodel experiment. He doesn't show the screen. He doesn't show the numbers on the screen. So you're not you're not able to know exactly degrees or 20 degrees or whatever.
Okay. So I don't trust people, therefore the Earth isn't a globe. I mean, it's not a convincing argument. I've shown you, I think, 5 different evidence at this point that the Earth does in fact move. You know, detecting the motion of the Earth is really quite easy.
But what are science do? What are university do? They have Cavendish experiment, but they don't have a interferometer to detect to pick up the drift of the Earth.
And your point is?
So my point is, they have pendulums, they have small Cavendish toys.
Yeah, but why would they? Their job isn't to prove that the Earth is rotating. They're there to teach people how to discern that.
But every university, they do Erasmus experiment every year. Why not? I mean, not every university, but just one. One to pick up the 50 degrees per hour with a gyro, with ring laser gyro, or with a interferometer. But there is none of them. You the only what you got is Bob Knodel, Ficor.
Irrelevant, because you know the thing is, he is on a mission to try and disprove that the Earth is a globe. So that's why he specifically did that. No one else cares about proving that because it's not really, you know, something that people want. You know, it's like people say, "Wow, why doesn't NASA just put a 24-hour video on the moon?" Well, why should they?
On the Netflix documentary, Bob says he's got a ring laser gyroscope. So we don't have any evidence of that ring laser gyroscope. So he was lying. How can you trust a man who was lying on a documentary?
I'm not trusting what he's saying. I'm trusting the data that was recovered from the device that he had.
But you are not able to see the screen. What then if you're not able to see the screen?
I mean, there's a lot more of it on FE core, but again, just saying you don't trust someone isn't evidence of something. The fact is we can detect this, and Critical Think has just given me the video that shows these gyroscopes picking that up. I'll briefly just play a bit of that while we talk. But so there's what you're asking for. I'm about to put up on the screen. I won't have the audio going. Come on.
Okay, so I'm expect to you doing the pendulum. You say you onto it, and I'm gonna repeat the.
Yeah, I'd love to see you repeat that, but you have to be very careful with things like this. You have to make sure, especially where the point where the pendulum is connected to its bit that it swings on, that needs to be exactly symmetrical and perfect.
I'm gonna show this all in the video. The English guy who made the pendulum doesn't show the upper.
He was American, I think, the gentleman physicist.
No, it's English.
The one that I showed you.
I think. Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure he's in America. But it doesn't matter anyway.
Doesn't matter.
But here is the video you were asking for of turning on gyroscopes and them detecting that drift. I can give you the link to this so that you can check on it yourself.
Okay, this is the critical thing one.
Yeah.
So it doesn't show. I know this video. It doesn't show the drift. What does it show? It's that you have to put the data in on the machine. So if you put wrong data,
no,
they will not
it puts
take it.
It just measures what's taking. You don't put in the drift. It just shows that when you turn it on.
No, you don't put the drift. You have to put the coordinate.
You of course you have to put the coordinates in, but then that's how it can detect what the drift is based on its location. So it's exactly what you asked for. It is gyroscopes being turned on and showing that there is a rotation, right?
No, it doesn't pick up the rotation. That video, it's about if you put the wrong data, if you put the wrong coordinate, the device doesn't work.
No, it's literally called carefully measuring the Earth rotation with the IRS align mode. That's literally what it's about.
But it doesn't pick up the 15 degrees per hour.
I mean, I would disagree with that.
The video, it's about the introducing the coordinate.
Yeah, and once you put your coordinates in, then it can detect what is going on.
Yeah, it can, but it doesn't. The guy, it doesn't wait for at least 5 minutes or so to pick up the drift.
Well, I'm pretty sure it does show what you're asking for, and I'm just skipping through it now, and I can see the drift being, on the screen. I'll put the link to that was actually in the chat. Critical Think posted it. There it is if anyone else wants to go and watch it. But again, you're just denying that gyroscopes pick up this drift. Just denying it isn't evidence, right? Every pilot knows that this is the case. Every single pilot, if you ask any pilot in the world, what happens when you turn on your gyroscopes? They're going to say, oh, they start detecting a drift, because that's what happens.
Now, from denying to not believing, it's a big distance. So I'm just not believing. So if this guy would pick up the 10 degrees per hour drift, well, I would say could be, but he doesn't. Once he introducing the right coordinate, he says, well, you see, the device now it's working perfectly, and that's it.
Well, yeah, because that's the point. Hugo Perez says, well, where's that? I lost it on the chat.
So anyway, if you, Greg, if you are a pilot and you stay on the airport waiting to the takeoff, you're just waiting orders for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you want, you would able to see at least one of the gyroscopes detecting the 15 degrees drift, right?
Yeah, in 3 axes.
Right. One of the axes will detect the 15 degrees drift.
No, they all 3 will. I mean, that's the point about the gyroscopes, is it doesn't just detect. It doesn't. Sorry, it doesn't just detect a drift in one axis. It detects that drift in 3 axes.
All right. So let's say you are with the airplane. You are exactly on the Quito, Ecuador, right on the
Right.
equator, and you got the free gyroscopes. One is horizontal, one is north south, and the other one is east west. Right. So the only one who will detect something, it will be the east west.
No.
So you will detect.
Gyroscopes aren't detecting east-west. They're detecting a drift. So they're detecting a
Right.
a change
Right,
in position based on acceleration.
Right, but there are free gyroscopes.
Yeah, one for pitch, one
position.
for yaw, one for roll.
Exactly, 90 degrees between them.
Yeah, but all of them can detect the rotation of the Earth in 3 axes. That's the point. That's how they can reference
Right.
themselves based on where they are.
So each one detect a plane. Right.
Yeah.
So let's say one it's a horizontal plane. The other one it's a vertical plane oriented to north and south. And the other one, the third one, it's a vertical plane oriented to west. So in that case, if your plane it's standing, it's waiting on the Quito, Ecuador, just one gyroscope will detect exact 15 degrees per hour.
No, a fiber optic gyroscope is going to detect a 15 degree per hour drift no matter where it is. It's not like a pendulum that has to use the sign of its latitude to calculate what it's doing. You get that, right? Okay, so the fact remains that gyroscopes pick up that drift. So
No, it doesn't.
But
I don't think
they really do. Gyroscopes do pick up that drift.
Greg,
I mean, you can deny it. You can deny it, dude. You can deny it all you want, but it is a fact.
Greg, it's not a fact because there are millions of pilots. They got iPhones, they got Android, they wait every day. They wait on the airport to take off with the iOS on. So it's so easy. Just pick the phone and make a footage of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, and pick up the drift. Nobody does.
But they do.
Nobody did it.
Right. So again, because no one has recorded it, it's not true. No, that's not a rebuttal. The fact is that these gyroscopes, every single one of them on the planet, pick up this drift. It is just a fact. And just because you're saying it's not, isn't a rebuttal. How about you actually try and give a reason why it does detect this? Even if you don't believe it, I frankly couldn't care if you believe it or not. It is just a fact that they pick it up. So why is that the case?
No, I don't think it pick anything up.
Again, that's irrelevant what you think. The fact is it does. So why would it be doing that?
Well, I don't believe your fact. For you, it's a fact, but it's not for me.
That's just denial, and it's not really a rebuttal.
Well, if you want to call it denial,
I'd like you to interact with the evidence. I'd like you to give me a reason why on a non-rotating plane it would pick it up. Whether you believe it or not is irrelevant. I would like an explanation as to why it would pick that up.
well, if I show you bubble in space or just astronauts, they
yeah, bubbles in space are right. Let me just stop you right there. Bubbles in space. You don't see bubbles. Yeah, you don't see bubbles in space. What you see, I've actually got this programmed in. Give me 1 second. because I literally just debunked that in my last video.
But Greg, if I don't accept your evidence right now, I say I don't believe it. You call me a denier.
Yeah,
And
no, but
if
that's
I
the difference.
call you
You're not
bubble-
giving me a rebuttal. All right. If you say bubbles in space, right, I can play you a video that apparently shows bubbles in space. All right. So, oh, look, looks like a bubble going up slowly to the right. Okay. But I'm not denying that there's something there. However, I can explain it. First off, bubbles don't act like that. Secondly, where's the rest of the bubbles? And thirdly, the current ISS EVU suits and the Apollo PLSS suits used a sublimation cooling system. That means that they would sublimate ice to space to take away heat using an evaporator sieve, okay? So I can answer that and tell you what the bubbles you're likely seeing are. Likely, it's sublimation of ice particles, okay? So I can give you an explanation as to why you see that. So that's why I say, instead of just saying you don't believe it, give me an explanation for what we're seeing.
Okay, so let's say I'm flying a plane, or I can check out the IRS and the 15 degrees per hour drift, and I say, okay, so it's real. I check it out with the plane gyroscope, with the gyro compass, with the pendulum. I check it out with all the methods, and then you ask me, so Ruben, why is that for?
What's the question there? Sorry. You still there? Have we lost him?
So,
oh, sorry, you keep cutting out there.
No.
Sorry, one sec. You there?
Yeah,
it's okay.
Freeze it up.
That's all right. You're back now.
Okay. So after I check it by myself that there is a 15 degrees drift with all the methods, so that could be because the spinning of the celestial sphere, 15 degrees per hour.
Yeah,
like,
but how would a spinning of a celestial sphere make a fiber optic gyroscope detect that? Because a fiber optic gyroscope doesn't know what's going on outside of it. A fiber optic gyroscope can't see into the sky to see a hypothetical celestial sphere, right? So there's no way that a spinning sky of any kind could interfere with what a fiber optic gyroscope is detecting.
Okay, so I don't know. Maybe the space. Maybe we live like
maybe
in a matrix, like in a virtual reality, and the space is generated by
cool story,
the
bro.
sky.
Cool story, bro. But it doesn't change facts that there is no way that a fiber optic gyroscope could detect something else. If you're just going to move into matrix theory and saying that we're possibly in a simulation, then it's a bit pointless because that's a completely unfalsifiable position. What I can falsify is the position that the Earth doesn't move, because we can detect the fact that the Earth moves with several methods, like so many methods. Just denying them isn't a rebuttal, right? I instantly gave an explanation as to what a bubble in space could possibly be. So I'll ask you again, if assuming that a gyroscope is detecting this 15 degree per hour drift, what is it detecting?
Well, I just told you, it could be the celestial sphere.
By what method would a gyroscope pick that up?
Oh, I don't know. The space is generated by the celestial sphere. The Zenith Atlas on the chat says the gravity is rotating.
Yeah, gravity doesn't rotate. That's not what gravity does. Gravity is a vector. Gravity is an acceleration towards the ground.
Okay, but anyway, let me ask you a question, Greg. You haven't checked that rotation by yourself by now. So you are into the Foucault pendulum. Let's say you do it by yourself, and you can't pick it up those 15 degrees per hour. Then you got the opportunity to check it out by the Bob Nodal interferometer. Let's say he send it you by post or whatever, and you check it and you cannot pick it up, and then you just climb to a aeroplane and try to pick up the drift on the gyroscopes, and you can't do it. So what would you say after? Because you asking me why is that? So I'm asking you the same. If you check it out by yourself and you can't detect the 15 degrees per hour, what would you say? Why is that?
If the 15 degree per hour drift was conclusively shown to not be a thing, I would have to look into other explanations as to why that happens. But the fact is that they do pick it up. So, I mean, if I was to get a extremely accurate interferometric fiber optic gyroscope and test that myself, I am completely confident that it would pick up a 15 degree per hour drift. If it didn't pick up a 15 degree per hour drift, I would have to ask every pilot what's going on when they turn on their planes.
You know, the pilots has the silence pact.
No, they don't. That's just ridiculous.
I think
honestly, it's just ridiculous that every pilot in the world is sworn to some kind of secrecy. That's one of the most ridiculous things that anyone has ever said. Because do you know how many planes there are in the world? Do you know how many flights there are per day? Do you know how many pilots there are? No, it's just not plausible that every single pilot in the world has signed some super secret agreement to keep the shape of the Earth and the movement secret.
Yeah, well, I think they have that silent pact, and that's why.
Do you have any evidence of that? I'm going to imply Hitchens' razor here, because Hitchens' razor says any claim made without evidence can be dismissed without evidence.
Yeah, the evidence, how much are they get paid?
Not enough.
Not enough. Just ask
like
Murphy.
Most of a whole bunch of pilots for Jet 2 went on strike earlier, last year, because they weren't getting paid enough. But again, just saying that every pilot is lying and has signed some super secret agreement isn't evidence that it's true. For you to present evidence, I would need to see some kind of actual evidence, a copy of that agreement, a pilot on his deathbed that has admitted that he was told to lie. No, this is just conspiracy nonsense with nothing to back it up. And I am implying Hitchens' razor. I am dismissing that claim because there is no evidence for it.
Well, it's my belief. It's not a claim.
Beliefs are irrelevant. Beliefs are really irrelevant. Beliefs mean nothing. I don't work on beliefs. I work on evidence. If there's evidence of something, I will hold a logical position that backs up that evidence. If there isn't evidence for something, I will not hold that position. Belief is completely irrelevant.
Okay, but all what I got, it's beliefs. I don't have any evidence.
Okay, so is there any evidence that the Earth is flat or concave? Because I can show you evidence now that would suggest that the Earth is a sphere as we say it is.
No, it's just about.
We've talked about the movement. Let's talk about the actual shape.
All right. So, I think it's about the criteria of the evidence, right? So to me, there is no evidence for any shape, the flat, not concave, and not the convex ball.
Well, there's plenty of evidence that the Earth is a sphere.
In your opinion, but
not in my opinion. In fact, and I can show you one thing right now, which absolutely proves that the Earth is not flat or concave, that it is convex.
Okay.
In this image.
Go ahead.
that literally
Go.
disproves every flat Earth and concave claim that there is, because that image is completely impossible if the Earth is anything other than a sphere.
Why?
Because the camera height is 210 meters. The top of that bridge, the pillar in the middle of the fourth bridge, which is literally just down the road from me, is 210 meters, meaning that you have an eye level of 210 meters. Those hills in the background
Okay.
are 500 meters in elevation, right? Which means
Okay.
that somehow something that is twice the height of your eye level has dropped below eye level. It is only possible if the Earth is convex.
So you would say the mountain has a 300 meters drop.
Yeah.
Okay, but that is a supposition. Why? Because your claim is based on a supposition.
No,
That supposition is
no. There's no suppositions
that,
here, right? You can get the topographical data, all you need, okay? And those hills are factually 500 meters above sea level. All right, that is just a fact.
Oh.
It's something that is measured. It's known. It's the case. Okay, so those hills in the background are 500 meters above sea level, yet they fall below the eye level.
Yeah, but the supposition is that the light is traveling in a straight line.
Light does travel in a straight line. That's the nature of light. Unless there is a medium for it to refract, light will travel in a straight line.
You know, I'm a little bit exigent. I mean, my criteria of evidence, maybe it's more exigent that you have. So I'm asking you, what proof do you have that the light is traveling straight?
Because that is the nature of light based on its waveform. There is no reason that light would travel in anything other than a straight line. And wait, I'm answering your question. Give me a sec, right? And the LIGO installations are evidence that light travels in a straight line when undisturbed. If there is a medium that the light is traveling through, i.e. an atmosphere, refraction will take place. And that is easily calculated because we have quantified the effects of refraction. So we know what refraction does based on simple things like the lapse rate of the atmosphere, okay? So we know that light travels in a straight line unless it's disturbed. This has been experimentally demonstrated countless times, especially in LIGO, where they had to they had to create these 4-kilometer long vacuum tubes to make sure that the laser inside went in a complete straight line, which it does. So light, its natural way of traveling is to travel in a straight line unless interfered by a medium.
Okay, so those LIGO construction, how does it prove that the light is going straight?
Because the 4-kilometer arms are completely straight.
Okay, so my next question is
they're like the 4-kilometer arms, each section, right? So you see these that are jutting out. Okay, you've got the tube, then you've got like a bit that's jutting out, then you've got a tube and a bit that's jutting out. Each one of those sections was created to be exactly flat, exactly 100% flat. All right, not level, flat. And then they put them together, making sure that each one was exactly flat. It took 20 years to calibrate the LIGO installations, okay? And they are completely 100% flat. So the light in them travels in a direct straight line. That is the entire point of their construction.
All right, so now I'm asking you, how do you check this? How do you know that those tubes are not slightly going up a little bit, just let's say 16 inches every kilometer, every mile?
Because
how do you know?
Because of the construction, as I've just said, each section is completely flat. And therefore, when you put them all together, it's also going to be flat. And it
Yeah,
actually was an excellent demonstration of the curvature of the Earth, because as you can see, this one is next to a flowing stream, which we all know will be level. And at the end of this 4 kilometer stretch of tube, there was 1.5 meters of curve that had dropped away, matching globe predictions.
Okay, but if you look this picture, can you check if that tube is going straight, flat, or it's going slightly up?
Well, you can actually, they do tours of the installations. You could go and check for yourself if you want. But
No,
again, you're just dismissing the fact that it's a known fact that light travels in a straight line. There's been countless demonstrations to show that this is the fact. Light will always travel in a straight line, and what we're showing. Okay, now we'll go back to LIGO. Even assuming that there is a slight curve, which there isn't. Okay, that does not explain the 300 meters of missing mountain. Now I'm going to back this up with a even better photo from the same person from the same point. So this is the top of Terrapin Law, right? And this is, again, the camera height is 210 meters. That's Hopetown Monument, which is also 210 meters above sea level. Yet Ben and Me Mountain in the distance is over 1,000 meters above sea level. Yet we are seeing it again below eye level. Light does not bend that much. Even if you're saying it does bend a little bit, then it doesn't explain why there is so much, nearly 5 times the height is below that eye level. It's completely impossible on anything other than a concave, a convex surface. Sorry, Zenith, you got my head there.
I think the bending light, it's explaining perfectly the 500 meters drop of the mountain.
No, it doesn't.
Because you get the same result with a bending convex Earth or with a bending up light.
No,
same result.
No, you really don't. Again, light, we know light travels in a straight line. We're high enough up here that the lapse rate is low enough that refraction isn't that much of an issue. And there's 5 times the amount that has disappeared.
Oh, great. Besides LIGO, is there any other experiment that we can do?
There's a whole bunch of massive interferometers all around the world.
No, an experiment like LIGO that proves that the light is going straight on horizon.
Yeah, every experiment around light ever. Like literally, it's a well-known, established fact that light travels in a straight line. Like at this point, you would actually have to be the one that would have to demonstrate to me that that is not the case. Do you have any evidence that when undisturbed, light travels in anything other than a straight line?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, there is a experiment made by a German in 2005.
And what was the experiment?
2005. The experiment was the guy is called Wilhelm Martin, and the experiment is a very easy one. It's a theodolite observation from in 1 kilometer.
So through the atmosphere.
Atmosphere.
Yeah, no, again, atmosphere causes light to refract. We know this. I'm asking for a demonstration of light bending in an undisturbed sense. So, show me light. Show me light in a vacuum chamber over 4 kilometers that bends.
No, we haven't.
Oh, well, we have one that shows that it doesn't bend. So should we just go with that?
No, but I haven't seen any experiment on the LIGO, so they don't allow me to check that installation?
They literally have tours around the facilities 3 times a week.
They have tours.
Yes. There's 2 of them in the US that have tours. There's 1 in Italy that has tours. There's 3 in China that have tours. Although I would not suggest going to China at the
I
moment.
didn't know there is a LIGO installation in Italy.
Yeah.
And it's same 4 kilometers of.
I'm not
square
sure if it's as big as the LIGO installation in the US, but it's a very similar apparatus, a massive interferometer. Okay. So again,
Okay, so
right, I need some evidence that light does not travel in a straight line. And the only way that you can provide me that evidence is by showing me light in a vacuum that is not traveling in a straight line. But it does. Light travels in a straight line.
But Greg, let me ask you something. When we see the sun rising from the horizon, right? When the sun is just above the horizon, right? It's touching the sun is touching the horizon.
Yeah.
What is your opinion? The sun is actually there?
No, you don't ever see the actual position of the sun because we're looking through the atmosphere.
Right. So where is the sun? It's lower or it's higher?
Depends on the refractive index. Normally, the sun's position is going to be lower than what you see. If you are looking, say, if you're close to the water, where you've got a lapse rate that is high enough to make light bend down, then the sun will actually be lower than its apparent position because it's being brought up above the horizon by the effects of refraction. But this is the thing. There's refraction. Everybody knows that refraction exists. Okay. But the effects of refraction have been quantified. They have been mathematically modeled out. I've been talking with like literally one of the world's leading experts in refraction. And, you know, he's got an entire page that conclusively shows that based on what we see with the sun at the horizon, there is no way that the Earth could be anything other than convex.
Well, the sun is got a size, a angular size of roughly
which doesn't change throughout the day.
half degree, right? It's 0.5 degrees.
Okay.
The angular size of the sun. So what is your opinion if the sun is actually lower? It's behind the horizon, but you see it because of the refraction of the light.
Mm-hmm.
How lower is the sun? 1 degree, 2 degrees below the horizon? Where is the real position of the sun?
I can't give you an exact answer to that because it's always going to be different depending on the refractive conditions of the day, right? So if you've got a high level of refraction, then the sun will probably appear a lot higher than it normally is. But if you've got a lower level of refraction, then maybe not. But you never see the actual position of the sun for 2 reasons. 1, because of refraction, and 2, because the light from the sun takes about 8 minutes to get to us.
So if we never see the actual position of the sun, the Aristotle's experiment is not
No, because
valid.
the position of the sun wasn't what the Eratosthenes experiment was looking at. What you see with the Eratosthenes experiment is the only assumption that the Eratosthenes experiment makes is that the light rays come to us parallel from the sun, okay? And based on that assumption, we can then do some calculations, especially if the sun is at solar noon, so directly above you, where there is not going to be a change in the density, because it's a direct, parallel to you, meaning that you're not going to get a alteration of the position. So you can do, when you know what solar noon is, you can then look at the angles that the shadow makes. And based on the fact that we know the rays from the sunlight reach us parallel, if the angles are different positions, then you can do some simple trigonometry to calculate the radius of what you're on.
All right, but if the Aristotle's experiment is based on that assumption that the
The
light rays
are parallel.
are parallel. How can you prove that? What experiment did prove that the light rays are parallel?
The fact that the that the shadow of the moon is smaller than the moon is an extremely good indication that the sun rays are coming to us parallel and that the light source is bigger than the moon.
But, well, the shadow of the moon could be an indication, could be a clue, but it's not a empirical experiment that proved that
it's an empirical observation. Right. So if the sun's rays are parallel and the light source of the sun is a lot larger than the moon, then the shadow of the moon will be smaller than the moon. So that if you have an hypothesis and you test it empirically by waiting for an eclipse and looking at the size of the shadow, and that confirms your hypothesis. So literally looking at the eclipse's shadow is an experiment that proves this notion.
You're talking about the sun eclipse or the moon eclipse?
Well, an eclipse of the sun, where that's how you get a shadow on the Earth.
All right. So you're just measuring the surface of the shadow on the Earth.
Yeah. We know it's about 50 to 70 miles. We also know that the moon's way bigger than that.
Okay, but I don't understand how this prove that the sun rays are parallel.
Because that's what you would expect if the sun rays are parallel. Also, the seasons actually give us a good indication that the sun rays reach us parallel, because if the Earth is tilted as we say it is, and the sun rays reach us parallel, that means that when it's winter in the northern hemisphere, it's because it's tilted away from the parallel rays of the Earth, meaning that the parallel rays have to spread over a larger distance, which means that they give less energy per square mile, which is another extremely good indicator that the sun rays reach us parallel. Otherwise, that wouldn't be the case.
Okay, but to me, many indicators they are not proofs. I need a...
Science doesn't prove anything. Science isn't in the business of proving anything. Proof only exists in mathematics.
Well, I don't think so. There are
that's a fact. Honestly, science doesn't prove things. That's not what science does. Proof is literally a word that is used for mathematics. The only way you can prove something is with maths.
But what are experiments for?
To disprove a hypothesis, maybe, not to prove anything. Science doesn't prove things. It's literally not what science does.
Science doesn't prove anything.
No. This is a big thing that flat earthers and concave earthers don't understand, is that that's not what science is about. Science is about using tools to discern what reality is. The only place that proof exists is in mathematics. For instance, Newton's law of gravitational acceleration, Fg equals g m1 m2 over r squared. That is a mathematical expression that gives us what the acceleration to everything towards the ground is. But we can prove that that is the case by doing the maths based on the way that things fall. So using maths, we can prove a hypothesis about gravity, but the only place that proof exists is within maths.
Okay, so you want to say that the Foucault pendulum is not an experiment that doesn't prove anything?
No, it is an experiment, but experiments don't prove things because science doesn't prove things.
So
this is an argument about semantics, but it's something that that a lot of anti-science people don't understand, is that science isn't there to prove things. Sparky NJ has put it very well. Science finds evidence in support of an idea. So science doesn't prove things because that's not the business of science. Science is not about proof. Mathematics is about proof.
Okay, but 2,500 years ago, how does it Eratosthenes prove anything?
He didn't prove anything. He had evidence to suggest that something was the case, and that evidence holds true. Again, science doesn't prove anything, but if you're talking about Eratosthenes, I mean, he didn't really have the scientific method because he was way before that existed. You know, science tries to disprove things. So if you do an experiment, you are doing the experiment to try and disprove a hypothesis. If you don't disprove the hypothesis, then the hypothesis becomes a scientific theory, which is then backed by a body of evidence. But science doesn't prove things because that's not what it's about.
All right. So science is about disproving things.
Well, that a scientific experiment is about disproving a hypothesis.
All right. So if I try to disprove the flying ball Earth, am I doing science?
If you are following certain steps along the scientific method, yeah. But I mean, it's an irrelevant question. It's just a fact that people need to understand that science itself is not about proof. It's not what science does. Proof only exists in mathematics. I can prove to you that 1 + 1 is 2 because that exists within a mathematical paradigm that we know is a fact.
Okay, that's new for me. I need to.
I'd suggest do some research around science and proof and their relationship, because it may help you actually discern what reality is. And again, I'm not using this as like a gotcha moment. It's just something that people everywhere need to understand. Even people on my side of the argument. Science isn't about proof. No, it's not. Maths is where proof exists. Science is about gathering evidence.
All right. So you don't know about the German experiment on 2005?
Again, I'd have to look into that, but from what you were saying, he uses the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how are you going to prove that light travels in a straight line if you're using something that makes light refract? I mean, if you want to talk about theodolites and stuff, you can look at the experiments that Gauss did, where it actually proved what. It didn't prove. Wrong word, Craig. It demonstrated that what the K value of light is when it's refracted and how we can calculate the actual curvature of the ray of light. So you can use theodolites and stuff to show that light curves, but you definitely can't use them to show that light travels in a straight line.
Anyway, Greg, the picture you showed me with the 300 meters drop of the mountain,
700 meters in this
inside
one.
Yeah, this one, it's inside the atmosphere. So
but again, the effects of refraction have been quantified, right? And the thing about refraction is sorry,
right, but you can on the German experiment you can quantify the refraction. So the refraction should be downward, and it's quantifiable, right? So if you got a different result, like instead of 8 centimeters, you got 16, you got double, and after you counted the refraction, so that means something.
Yeah, again, we know what the effects of refraction are. They've already been quantified.
Exactly. So I suggest you, because I gotta go, thank you very much, I suggest you to look into the German experiment. If you don't,
I would love to. Could you email me a link to that if possible?
All right, I'm gonna send you the link, and just to understand, I don't know, for the next debate, for the next stream, just to get it clear, to understand the experiment, right? Because I think it's relevant.
Yeah, no, I always appreciate people actually sending me stuff to look over. So if you could email me some stuff about that, I might even do a video debunking it if it is silly enough.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you for joining. Before you leave, would you just like a final few minutes to talk to the crowd, tell them what you think? We've got 700 people watching.
No, I'm not. Yeah. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much to all of the people from chat for the patience. I know this my thoughts, my beliefs are going against the actual official current. So I'm not a good speaker. I'm just a guy who express freely my beliefs, my opinion, and to experiment, to, like you said, not to prove anything, because science doesn't prove anything, but to demonstrate, if you like, to use a different word.
Yeah.
Right.
And just before you go, I've got 3 quick questions to ask you. If I have a triangle of sides 1, 1, and 1, what are the internal angles?
The internal angles are always 180 degrees. If you got a triangle on a plane.
Okay, so the individual angles of an equilateral triangle would be
180 divided on 3 would be 60.
Very good, better than most flat earthers. What is 5 divided by 0?
5 divided by 0.
Yeah.
Well, it will be 0 because...
No, it's undefined is the answer. You can't divide something into 0 groups. And if I've got a number that is 10 to the negative 17, is that a positive or a negative number?
Let's repeat again, please.
The number 10 to the negative 17, is that a positive or a negative number?
Negative 17. So that's like the G, like the constant of gravitation, right?
No. I'm just a number. So 10, to the power of negative 17.
It must be a number smaller than 1, right?
Yes. So is it a positive number or a negative number?
Well, even if it's smaller than 1, I think it's a positive number.
Well done. You got 2 out of 3 right, which is better than most flat earthers that come on. So well done. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you for the conversation. I do appreciate it. And we will probably have you back at some point, because I would like to carry on this conversation. And I will, if you send me the links to that German experiment, I will look into that.
Okay, thank you very much.
No worries.
A pleasure to be with you, Greg.
Take it easy. Have a nice night. Well, guys, that was interesting as always. Thank you everyone for watching. Always nice to see a large crowd. Always appreciate it. I'm just going to put the camera back on me, and then we're going to go over the super chats and stuff that we've had, because there's been quite a few. Obviously, guys, your super chats are the reason I can keep doing this. I can't say enough how much I appreciate the fact that you want to support what I do. It blows my mind. Although, it's not just the people that do super chats and Patreon and channel members and stuff. All of you watching, everyone that clicks the like button, everyone that shares, it means the world, and it helps my channel grow. So if you aren't able to support me financially, the best thing you can do if you do want to support me is just by sharing my stuff on Facebook and Twitter, Bebo, Ancestors Reunited, whatever. Let's start at the beginning. Always a good place. Rangerman9404 with $5 says, is it wrong to start pouring gasoline into the dumpster? Wasn't that much of a dumpster fire tonight, which I do enjoy a good dumpster fire, obviously. But tonight it was a bit more calm. Frustrating maybe, but boom. Copernicus Thinker for $3. Shout out to FTFE taking Nathan arrest seriously. Yes, absolutely. there's rumors going around at the moment that I'm the reason why Nathan got arrested. I'm not saying that I'm the reason that Nathan got arrested. However, when he was live doing that, I did try and get people to confirm that he'd been arrested. And I did like email the local law enforcement before that. As soon as I saw the thing on YouTube, I emailed local law enforcement. I emailed the principal of the school. And I've emailed them since with what he's done follows up. So yeah, I'm probably not the reason Nathan was arrested, but I absolutely did report him to the local law enforcement. And I appreciate everyone else that did the same thing, because beliefs or not, fucking harassing children at a school is not on. You don't get to decide what those kids are learning. That's the parents' jobs and the teachers' jobs. Those parents send their kids to school to learn the curriculum. They send them to school with the assumption that they are going to be looked after and taught things that will help them in the world in reality. They do not send them to school with the expectation that some crazy homeless smelly guy is going to shout at them from the sidewalk. No, what you did, Nathan Thompson, is detestable. And there is no backing it up. There is no saying that that was a good thing. There is no defending Nathan Thompson's actions. It was wrong. And I am going to hammer this home. My next like 4 or 5 videos is going to be about Nathan and how fucking stupid this whole thing is. So yeah, no worries. Nathan Thompson, fuck you. Steve1758 for $4.99 US. Nathan Thompson for Prison Bride magazine cover model of the year. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Whilst I'm reading these out, I'm going to actually put up the Nathan Thompson meme list. We'll go back to the beginning. Oh, of course, my VMix has just crashed while doing that.